Hi y'all. Today we're going to be making a little bear. We're going to be making him on the 22 needle. This is the Addi. You can use whichever 22 needle machine you have. And we're going to start off with the head, and so I normally just let it drop to the bottom. Go around my first needle, behind the second, in front, behind, and this is casting on. If you're not familiar with casting on, you can go ahead and check out my casting on video. But this is what we do. We go in front and behind. This is my visual divider right there, so I know that that's my last needle. I'm behind it. I go, and this first one sometimes pops out, so you have to be careful. Make sure that it's there. And we are starting out with the head. I'm setting my counter, and I want to do 30 rows. Alright, we're working on the last row now. My visual divider, last needle. That's the last needle. So I want to just leave enough yarn to go ahead and cast off. And so I'm going to go ahead and open this. I'm going to go ahead and put this back here and make sure that that last needle right there catches. And it has. And then I'm going to cast off. And I don't go all the way around. If you've watched any of my videos, I'm just not that brave. Just yesterday. Alright guys, I'm going to go get another needle. I don't care for this one. I'll be right back. Alright, so I got another one. This one's a little bit thinner than this one, so it makes it easier for me to get under there. But just yesterday I was knitting something and I dropped a stitch and I could not recover it, so I had to take the whole thing apart and redo it. So when it comes to casting off, I just take my time, because to me, I rather take my time doing this right here that is simple and easy, instead of having to redo my piece or have to worry about fixing a drop stitch. I'm not a fan of it. So this is how we cast off. If you're not familiar with casting off, please check out my casting off video where I explain it in detail. And that's my last one. And so we've cast it off, and then we just want to just stretch out the work, get those stitches nice and in place. And then we will just set this off to the side and go on to the next piece. So now we're going to work on the shirt and legs. I'm going to start out with the color white. We're going to do 12 of these, and we're going to go ahead and cast on the same way like we did earlier. You always wind up behind the last one. If you don't, you've done something wrong. Make sure this first one is in place. I'm going to go ahead and set, and we're going to go ahead and do 12. Tie this off, so I'm going to do that. Last needle, I'm going to make sure it's there. And so what I do to get a jogless change is I go ahead right back in this needle. I'm going to just leave a little. I'm going to put it right there with the white, and then I'm going to go ahead and thread it in here and make sure that it takes both of them. And it did. And then I just pull this blue one just to make sure it's nice and tight. And we're going for 10. And last nail. So I'm going to go ahead and just leave a little bit. And then I am going to go with brown for his little feet. And that will just be 5. Before I put that in there, I'm going to go ahead and grab this one. Make sure it's on there. Put this in there. Make sure that's on there. Yarn it through. Make sure they both catch. There we go. Just make sure that's nice and tight. And then we're going to do, what did I say, 5. And this is the last one, last needle. And then for this one, I do want to leave it a little long because I am going to cast off. And then we do the same thing with this one. We just stretch it out. And we set it off to the side so that we can do another shirt and leg. So you're going to need 2 of these. Alright, and the same, we're just going to stretch it out. And so see, I'll show you, because I haven't tied the color changes yet. You can see, like where I was in white and then I went to blue, so you can see that. Or like right here where I was on blue and I went to brown. But once I tie these off, which I will show you later, that will be nice and even. But that's what that looks like when you don't do the jogless. So we just stretch this one out and go on to the next one. White, I'm not going to be able to, because it's much easier when you can see the difference. So that's something worth mentioning. You don't want to use your waist yarn the same color as what you're knitting in. You want to use a contrasting color. I'm going to use this gray. And just... So again, here we go again, guys. Teacher. And so last needle. Since this is just a color change, I don't need it to be long, so I'm just cutting that. And then we're switching to brown. So last needle, I want to make sure that that stays on there. Make sure this one is on there. And then So I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do 4 rows and see how I like that. I know I made a bigger bear, which I need to make a video on and share that with you guys. And so this bear is going to be his little buddy, little cub, or I don't know. So that's what this one's going to be. But the other one, his bow tie is, I think it was 8, maybe 10, I don't remember. So I'm thinking that this one will need to be like 4, but that's not an absolute, so I'll do 4 and I'll see how it looks, and if that's not correct, I'll just update you. Muzzle, we're just gonna take our white and we're gonna... Alright guys, so here's our pieces. So that's gonna be our head, our shirt, pants, feet, arm. This is just waistline up here. So the shirt, the hands, shirt and hands, that's for the arms. This is the bow tie. I'm going to try this out. I believe this is going to be too big, and if it's too big, I will use the egg, but I'm going to go ahead and give this a try. And then the muzzle. So there you have it. All the pieces to our little bear. What is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 pieces. Now we just have to assemble everything. Alright, so the first thing that we're going to start with is the muzzle, and all we want to do is just cinch it up. We're just going to cinch both sides up, and I'm going to take and I'm going to put this right back in where it's coming out at. I'm going to put it into the other side just so that my knots are on the inside. Don't want to get that nice and tight. Alright. And then we're going to do the same thing to this side. And you just want to keep straightening this out so that it's not all bunched up in one space. And I'm not gonna cut my yarns because I'm gonna use them. Even though they don't need to be this long, they just kind of get in the way when they're this long. But I'm going to use it to sew on my work. We'll come back to this piece. I'm not thrilled with it, so I may change that. And then the bow tie, because we wanted to see how big this bow tie is going to be. And what we do is, here's where we started, our ending, our beginning and our ending, because here's where we tied it off. And what we want to do is just join these two. So I normally, from right here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So it's actually going to be, this is 11, but I want to come one over because I'm going to grab that one first. So it was the initial one. So we grab, so we went to 11 and then we went one more. And then we want to pick up all 22 stitches. So we've got one, we come here, we pick that up, that's 2, then we come to this side, pick this one up, bring it through, that's 3, that's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. And these two, you can mark them in the beginning because they get hard to see. $20, $21, and then there's my 22. And as you can see, it's tied in there. You just have to find it. If you don't wind up with 22, that means you skipped one somewhere and you gotta undo it and redo it again, because if you don't, you're gonna have drop stitches and your work's gonna come apart. And then, so we got our 22, we take this, we yarn over and we pull it through. And so that's one end, and then we're ready to make sure that we remove the waist joint from the right side. You saw me grab that one. So I'm just going to hold this just so that I don't accidentally pull that and undo my work. And when you see me take all these precautions, it's because I've done it. I've made the mistake before, and I share my mistakes so that you don't have to make the same mistakes if you don't want to. So this side pulled out really easy, this side won't. And then on this side, we're basically going to do the same thing. When I first started doing this, I had such a hard time that on all the stitches like this, when I first marked it, I would go and I would put a contrasting yarn in each one so that I wouldn't miss any, because every time I did it, I was missing stitches and I was dropping stitches. And so I did that a few times till I finally managed to get them right. So we've done that side. And so this one's not going to pull. It just tightens up. So what we want to do is basically pull this yarn all the way till we get to the first over here to the first stitch, and once we undo the whole first row, then it'll come undone. So basically we just do this, and yeah, it looks like that was the last stitch right there. And so once we pull this one out, then it'll come apart just like the other side. And so this is what we're going to work with, and we're going to tie it. Let's see, if I do it in half. So you see how wide or how long this is. I'm not gonna like that for a little guy, because this is gonna be his head, and if it's that long, it's gonna be too big. So I'm not I'm not gonna use this for him. And I think if I fold it and I joined it on this end, and let's see what that would look like. I'm just thinking out loud here and trying to if I join these two ends right here and work, that might work out. That might work out. You guys want to try it? See what it looks like? I'm just going to come across so that I'm joining these two. And then we are going to just match a stitch these. Go ahead and actually I'm just going to use these two right here and knot them up. Then I'm going to hide this one in the work. Well, I've already run that from there to there. So I think I will leave some of this just to tie off. And then just grab a piece. And I normally just do, which might be too long, but I'm gonna hold like this. I go up to my elbow, and I cut it. And so I'm gonna leave this piece here because I'm gonna use it to so I'm gonna place these in the middle, and then I'm gonna do that and then do it again so that it'll basically hold its spot and I don't have to be holding it down. I want to get it as close to the middle as I can, and that looks about right. And so I'm going to go ahead and pull nice and tight and see it staying there. I don't have to hold it. And then I am going to make a knot. And then with this one, you can do it with these two, but I'm just going to go with this one. I'm going to go around just a few times. And then I'm going to use one of these. To tie it off. Now we're going to look at it. And I think it looks good. I think we will see what it looks like on the bear when that time comes. Let's work on his head. How about that? With the head, what we do is just like if you've made beanies before. I haven't made a beanie video yet. There are so many of them online. I might make one though. So we're just gonna basically do like we're doing a beanie. So we're gonna close both ends. And you want to reinforce this. I'm not worried too much about it because this is going to be on the inside. I'm going to go ahead and reinforce it. And then we're going to go ahead and make a knot. And we're going to put that in. That's normally why I like bringing my stuff on the inside before like I knot them, because I don't really like my knots on the outside. They're just so much easier to hide on the inside. So then we just basically are closing this end as well. And we are going to reinforce it. We're going to go ahead and keep this out here because that's where we're going to use that to tie this off. And I'm going to cut this because just to tie it off, I am not going to need that much yarn. And as you can see, it gets in the way. I want them to be right up against each other, the crowns. So make that. And A double knot will be fine, but I'm going to go ahead and add a third one. And then I'm going to just cut these even, because I'm going to use this to do my drawstring for the bottom of the head. Alright, so I'm going to just hide these in the work. Of course, I want to go right through where my stitch is so that it'll pull the stitch or the knot right into the work to hide the knot. And so, see, just like a little beanie. So we're making a, a beanie, a double layer beanie for a little doll or something, which is not necessarily a single layer beanie for a doll is just fine. But that's what it is. Then we're gonna take strand of yarn, we're gonna hold these like this, and we're just gonna basically go around. We pick up two bars. Make sure you don't pull that through. And you want to stay as close as possible to the row that you're working on. Then you skip two, and then you pick up the next two. And we just go around like that. And then because this side's so much longer, I just kind of hold this open, pull. That should give me enough to knot, and so that's what we have. And then I'm going to grab this is from projects that I've taken apart. That's what the yarn is in there for. I reuse it. So I'm just gonna stuff the head. And I like to stuff it nice and full, but not to where it stretches my stitches out, but nice and full. So for this, I go ahead and I start cinching in a little, and I'll go ahead and do this part again so I don't have to hold it. I don't even know what that's called, but when I go around it twice, and then I'll just make the hole smaller, and then that way I can kind of see where I'm at and how much more I need. And a lot of times when I'm doing the drawstring, I'll do it with a double layer of the yarn. But because this is so small, I thought one would be enough. But the reason I do that is because when you're pulling, there's a possibility of breaking the yarn. And I've done it several times. And so with it doubled, your chances of pulling it go way down. And so there's that tiny little gap there, which is perfectly fine because we're gonna sew the head onto the body. And so that's gonna be covered. We're gonna go ahead and tie that. And if you didn't want that little gap right there, I'm gonna leave it because this is gonna go on my body. that's not going to be a problem. But if you didn't want that, you take one of these strands and you reinforce it around and pull. And you can make it go away just the same way we did the top of the head. So, but I'm gonna leave it at that. That's our head. Alright, so this is the body, and here is where the color change was between the blue and the brown, and you see how it just blends in. So that's when you do the jogless, but remember, for this project it's not necessary because we're gonna fold these and we're gonna mattress stitch, so it'll be on the inside. But if you're working on a project where it does matter and you don't want it to be seen, that's what the jogless does. And so we made one knot, and now that we got it just right, we're gonna go ahead and make a couple more knots. And then we're gonna go ahead and just cut that. And it looks perfect. And so we're gonna do the same thing to this one. So take the two strands, pull it, and then I just pull nice and tight, and there you have it. And that's just wonderful. That's a great option to have. And then we cut those. And those were the only color changes that we had, so I don't have to look for anything else. And then with this, I'm just gonna pull this so that I don't have all this extra. Just to where it's not all open, where I can get it a little bit flatter. And so if you hadn't done the jogless and it was showing right here, we would want to go like this and then problem solved. Okay, so we've got this one ready to go. I have a stitch marker there because this part is where we're going to join the body, and then this will be separate because we want the legs to be apart. And so I'm just doing basically the same thing to this one, just kind of cinching it up just a little to not have it be all floppy like this. Make it a little bit easier for me to work with it. And I've already tied the insides. My color changes, always make sure to do your color changes. Don't forget that. Because if you do, your work is going to come apart. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and fold this in half. And I am going to find the stitch. With this one, I have them with the V open on the bottom, and I'm coming up. I got my feet, and then I've got 1, 2, and on the third stitch, that's where I'm going to start. The legs or the feet, and I'm going to basically do the same thing with this one. And you want to make sure that you're following the same direction. So if you're working with your V's where they're open to one end or close to the other, just make sure that both of the ones you're working with are the same and that you stay on that row. So I'm there, so I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and that's smart. So that's for when we come back and do the feet. So right now what we're going to do is we're going to join the body. And even up here, we want to make sure that we stay on that same row. And you can mark it if it helps you. So then I put that through. I'm going to come in here. And I'm going to pick up the one bar on this side. And I'm just going to pull my yarn through. And then I'm going to go in on the other side. And I'm going to pick up on that side. And this is basically just called a mattress stitch, and it joins your work basically invisibly. I'm not sure if I have a video on it. If I don't, let me try to work on that and put one up soon. But we want to make sure we stay on the same row. And maybe I should have just marked the fronts, and then that way the back is not in my way. Mark them together, so I'm going to go ahead and mark them again, but mark them separately. See if that maybe helps some. Alright, so I came out here, so I go back to the other side. And basically, what you're doing is you're going back in where you came out of. So, I came out here, but now I'm going to go back to the other side, and I'm going to, you see where this strand is coming out of. Right here, I'm going to go right back in there, and I'm going to pick up that one strand. And then, see, if you pull it tight, then it's hard to find that spot. But if you don't pull it tight, which is why I like having the extra yarn, then it's right there. You can easily see it. And so then I just come back on this side and I pull up the one strand. And you can do 2 strands. And what I mean by that is, let's go back on this side. And so I'm coming in back, right back in here where this one's coming out. I'm just going right back in there. And I pick up 1, but you can actually pick up 2. And of course, if you pick up the 2, it's quicker, but I like doing 1. My project is small enough that doing 1 at a time is not gonna make a huge difference on time. So you just go back and forth. And so I'm gonna do this till I get to here, because I want to join all this, and then I'll see you back when I get. Alright guys, so here we are. We got to the point where we have the stitch marker. So I pick up that last bar, and you see how my work is. So then here's where the magic happens. Why not, right? So you hold your end and you just pull. And I can keep pulling, but since I have this end here, I'm just gonna go ahead. Oh, it's not letting me pull. And sometimes if you split your yarn or something like that, it might not let you pull all the way. So we'll go ahead and keep trying it this way. And so I pulled. Look at that. And I always like to give it, just not really stretch it, but just pull it out to where it's not pulled, where it's what am I trying to say? Where it's bunched up. So there you have it. It's just invisible. It just doesn't even look like it was two different pieces of fabric. And then we're going to come and we're going to do the same thing to the other side. Alright, so we made the little knot. And I'm going to go ahead and just leave a little bit, so when I'm doing other stuff I can use this to help make other knots. And something that you need to remember is that in this case I can go ahead and close these up like this now, or I could go the other way, right, and close it up. But if you haven't done your jogless, make sure that your jogless, if you want to hide it, is on the inside where you're going to come like this. Okay, so if I was to go the other way, they would be visible. My color changes would be visible, but if I come like this, they're not going to be visible. You can't tell mine, but this is where they're at. But I'm going to go ahead and hide it anyway. Just pretend that they are visible. And so I'm going to do the same thing on this side. I gotta get my fan because I am pretty hot. And this is a fan that I use if you are going through menopause or are postmenopausal. You know, the hot flashes come and how severe they can be, and this fan has been a lifesaver for me. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that on. I hope that it's not going to make too much noise on the mic. I hope it's not, but I'll leave a description in the link, or a link in the description box in case you're interested in looking it up. It has just been amazing. So I carry that thing around. Anyway, enough of that, but those of you who are there know how bad that can be. Basically how we've done before. We're just going to pull. And so pull this in for this leg. Look at that. Beautiful. And then I pulled this one, and this should give me enough yarn to finish this off. So it came out on this side. And so I'm going back in right here, and I can't even tell what I'm picking up. Should be. I definitely don't. Yeah, so I picked up there. So that's my last one. Again, that's why I like leaving the long yarn, because then I don't have to deal with, you know, trying to figure out where my stitch is or what, you know, where I'm at. Just makes it easier to just be able to leave it all open and then just close it at the end. Now, if you're working with a really big project, yeah, you pull every so often. You don't wait to the end because it may not pull correctly. Alright. The last V. Look at that. I'm going to pull that one. That one. We have his little legs. Then what we're going to do is I'm going to cut this shorter because I don't need it that long. Just need it long enough to make a knot, probably a little bit longer than what I just left that one. And then what we're going to do is we're going to pull on a cast off yarn to close his little feet. When you use this to tie, make sure that you do this again because you don't want to scrunch all this up. Go back, right back in. Slowly. Now we do the same thing to the other side. I'm going to go ahead and cut this one. And again, we go in where we came out of. And in this case, you know, you could just go into your work and leave it in there as part of stuffing. And you wouldn't have to cut it. He is turning out adorable. We're gonna stuff him. I'm going to start cinching him up, and then I will probably add a little bit more stuffing. So what you want to do with the long ones, because we know the short ones are from when we came up the sides, which we will tie off onto the long ones once we cinch them up a bit. And so basically what we're doing is cinching up the side. And so I like to make sure it's not all bunched up. And so we just are coming in and see we're closing it. I'm going to do the same thing to this side. And of course we want to cinch on this end and we want to cinch on that end. And I think I'm gonna see that I can add more. And, you know, you want to stuff enough to where you have a stuffed toy, but you don't want to stuff where your stitches are all open and misshapen. And so you gotta go a little bit more. I like to go when I go like this. It pops up the top and then I know I'm done. And this is fun, right? Just no rush. I don't like doing it in a rush. I like taking my time. And on here, when you're stuffing the top, make sure that you're under both layers and not just stuffing under the one. All right. So that looks good to me. So we'll go ahead and pull on that one, and then we'll go ahead and pull on this one. And it seems like that's as far as that one is going to pull. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to, actually I can go ahead and close one end off, and I'm going to, since that one is stop pulling there. I'm going to tie that. Make 3 knots. All right. And then I'm going to try to keep 2 needles here so I wouldn't have to undo that. I'm going to go ahead and tie this in my work. to take this little one, which is where we came up with this. I'm going to pull this one as tight as I can because it is pulling a little bit more now. And then I am going to take this one and bring it back to this side again, just to see that little gap right there. Just want to close that gap, so I'm just going to come and pick up to close that. And we're going to tie this off. And then we're going to hide this one. Actually, we could leave it there to tie. So then we have this little hole right here. And we can leave the hole because the head is going to go right there, so that hole won't matter. But we can also close it. So we yarn our needle. So we yarn our needle and we kind of just go around like we did when we did the top of the head. And we just pick up like that top row of stitches. And so we made it back to the beginning, and you see that? It'll close nicely. It reopens, so like we did earlier, what I like to do is I go that and like that, and now I'll be able to pull it where it doesn't, let me do that again. So that the hole doesn't come open while I'm making my other knot, so. Alright, so I have that tiny little one right there. I could go around again to close it. But I'm good with that. And next we're going to put the head on. You have to figure out which part you want to be the front. So if you have like uneven stitches or something like that, I normally look, and if there's any kind of discrepancy or something that I think doesn't look quite even, to close it off. I always like to have something to tie off to, so I don't have to make the knots in my work. But I have two right there, so I'm going to go ahead and put this in the work.